Tessa to stay in good health.
When you think quilts, think Jeff Jokums. Jeff talks about his American professional quilting systems made in Iowa.
We manufacture professional quilting machines that people use to do custom, highly detailed work, something that you can't buy in even an expensive department store or any other store. Each product is individual and done specially.
And your products, your quilting machines are made in the USA, right in Carroll?
In Carroll, Iowa.
How many people are involved in production?
Probably about 22.
What's significantly different about the machines you make?
Our machines were and still are the only machines ever manufactured and produced out of aircraft aluminum. They are light as a feather, and we have a few people, you know, there's always the copycats, and I refer to us as the Miller Beer of the quilting machine industry because everybody has a light machine now, but that was our niche, and people appreciate the fact that you could take the machine with their pinky finger and operate it with ease.
I've never quilted, but I want to show you how apparently simple this is. Push the button. If you can do a straight line, you can quilt. You just have to keep it moving, as I'm told by Jeff, back and forth. Of course, I'm making kind of a mess here. There you go.
We have customers presently in 74 countries. I explained to you earlier, it kind of tickles me a little bit to say that last week we shipped 10 machines to Taiwan instead of importing them from Taiwan.
You go to shows all over the world?
All over the world, yeah. In fact, we got a grant from the Economic Development Commission of Iowa just last month, and I'll be exhibiting in South Africa in October, yeah.
You also have been recognized as an entrepreneur and as a special business.
A little bit, yeah. We were Exporter of the Year for Iowa in '92, the Governor's Award, and in '94 for several states we were the Small Business Administration Exporter of the Year in '94.
Is American Quilting a household name in the quilting business?
It sure is.
And you've actually built that, and I guess you're kind of a celebrity yourself.
Oh, they call me King Quilt. Seriously, I get letters addressed to Carroll, Iowa. Of course, I live in Des Moines now, but it just says King Quilt, Carroll, Iowa. It gets there.
King Quilt. Jeff Jokums' quilting machines cover the globe with customers from as far away as Korea and Australia.
Wow.
And as close as
Carolina.
Carolina.
I tell you what, we may need some quilts here. Cool weather coming in. Lows in the 40s, perhaps. We'll have that forecast for you. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Kay Wood's Quilting for the 90s. Each week, Kay will be joined by another famous designer who will share easy methods for fine quilting and sewing. Quilting for the 90s features guests from throughout the country. Each teaches their specialty to you in this exciting series. Quilting for the 90s with Kay Wood is your source for new and creative ideas. Now, let's join Kay and today's guest.
Welcome to Quilting for the 90s. My special guest today is a friend of mine, Ike Winter. Hi, Ike.
Hi, Kay. I'm just fine.
Ike is a quilter who uses a quilting machine, is that right?
That's correct.
And he's also a field representative for the American Professional Quilting Systems. Ike, let's talk a little bit about you, okay?
Right.
There aren't a lot of men in quilting, are there?
No, not too many.
But we're glad for the ones that are.
I'm glad you like me.
Why, sure. Now, you were telling me earlier that you are in a guild. Where is your guild?
The guild is South Bay, Torrance, California. It's South Bay Quilters Guild.
Okay.
There's 250 members, and I'm the only man in the bunch.
And what do they say about you there?
They say a lot of things. I have been told that I can do no wrong.
You can do no wrong.
That's what I've been told. Once or twice I've been told that.
Oh, okay. Gee, maybe the rest of you men out there who are watching ought to take Ike up on this and get into a quilting guild. I don't think many men can get told that very often, do they?
No.
Now, you have a long history of quilting, don't you?
Yes. I started quilting in the 50s.
On a quilting machine?
On a hand-guided frames quilting machine with an old machine.
Okay. Was there any background? I mean, did you just decide one day you were going to be a quilter?
My mom quilted on the same machine in the 40s and early 50s.
Really? There were quilting machines back then?
There sure was. They were real crude compared to today.
Right.
Real crude.
But they still did the job, didn't they?
They did the job. They did it a lot better than hand quilting, put a lot more stitches in the quilt where that they were. I have quilts that I've had for 40 years that have almost been washed out to where they're just rags, and it's quilting's still there.
Okay.
Still there.
Right. And most of the, well, maybe not most, but some of my viewers I know, when we talk about a quilting machine, they think about, oh, the comforters that they see in the store that have the great big stitches. My friend Ami Sims calls those toe hookers. That's not a quilting machine, is it?
Not a quilting machine like I have.
Okay, all right. Because we want it to look pretty much like hand quilting, don't we?
That you strive to make your machine quilting look like high hand quilting is the goal, which sometimes it does.
Okay, you brought a journal with me, and I know your mother kept a journal of her quilting, and you do too.
My mom kept a track of all the quilts she done that many years ago, quilted a whole quilt for $1.
Okay, let's take a look at that journal, because there's a lot of pages in there with what we want to see. Where are we? Toward the back here?
Yep, I'm in the back.
Okay, what do you have here? What's this a list of?
This is a list of all the quilts I've quilted this year. Starts off here. It tells you the date, how big the quilt is, who owns it, what machine I used, and the pattern I put on it. And each line is a quilt that I've quilted.
You've done a little bit more than 3 or 4 quilts, haven't you?
I've done...
what does it say?
I have to put my glasses on, but it's pretty close to 200 this year, 175.
And how many do you think you'll do by the end of the year?
I'll get 300 done.
300, okay. And what do you do with all the quilts? You said that the maker of the quilt was listed in there. Do you quilt for other people?
I quilt for other people, yes.
Okay, and what else? Come on, tell me.
I do a lot of community service work for the guild I'm in. They have a group of ladies that make little quilt tops for babies, for blind children and AIDS babies and homeless mothers' babies, and they bring them to me, and then I quilt them and give them back to them. I've quilted this year 145 quilts, for baby quilts for them this year.
Okay, and what did you tell me about? You've got some more things back here, too. What's...
Oh, I make some quilts for the VFWs each year for the wheelchair patients at the Navy Hospital in Long Beach, and I donate them to the local VFW, and then they give them out to the veterans at Christmas time.
What do you do in your spare time, Ike?
I run around the country, have a good time.
That's right. Ike really does that. He teaches or goes around and demonstrates internationally on the quilting machine. So you must be pretty good.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh, we like you, though. Okay, I want to take a look now at the quilt right behind me here, because this is one of the quilts that we pieced. And this was quilted on your quilting machine. You want to tell us a little bit about the stitches?
That's stippling, and it's kind of like what we used to call, when I was learning to quilt, as an all-over pattern, which just, it means wiggly lines all over the whole quilt, like a jigsaw puzzle. But the stippling today, they've closed it up to where it's real close, and they call it stippling now, which is just another word.
Another word.
Yes. It's a very beautiful job.
Okay, and Ike did not quilt this, but it was quilted on this type of machine. Also, I want to call attention to the fact that the blocks that are green on this quilt are quilted with green thread, which is another option. We can change threads. And the pink squares are quilted with pink thread.
Right.
That's one of my favorites.
I sometimes will change colors of thread 3 or 4 times from one end of the quilt to the other if I'm trying to do something that want to coordinate the thread color with the block or the background. And you just put it on there and pull it through and thread it, and you're going again. So it don't take no time at all.
Right. Okay, this is another quilt that you'll recognize. This was called Woven Strips. This is stippled, right?
Right.
But it's done a little bit differently. I don't know if you can see it from there, Ike, but the green squares...
It's real small stippling, and the pink squares have what I would call an all-over pattern. It's just a larger stippling.
Or more distance between the
Yes,
between the rows of stitches or the curve of the stitches. Also, again, in this, the quilting covering the green areas was done with green, and the pink were done with pink. And when you look at the back of the quilt, we're not going to do that right now, but on the back, as you can imagine, you actually see where the squares are because the stitches not only change color, but they change in density. So
That's right.
okay. Well, now that we've taken a look at a couple of machine quilts that are mine, machine quilted quilts, let's take a look at the machine that makes this easy to do, right?
Okay.
Okay, let's take just talk about the machine a little bit for the viewers who are not familiar with quilting machines. We've got, over here we've got a needle.
A needle, and as a needle, and it has an oversized bobbin compared to a regular household machine. And when you go to quilt, you do the same thing with this machine as you do with your household machine. You pick up the thread, just like this, only you don't have the little wheel in the back. You pick up your bottom thread, and then you're ready to quilt. Then you have an on button to turn the machine on, and you can start quilting.
Okay, let's take a look here at the thread. It does have a tension.
Yes, right.
And the thread runs through here and the cone
To the
thread.
cone.
Is there any special kind of thread you need?
I use cotton wrap polycore, but you can use 100% cotton, and there's a lot of major brands that you can use.
Okay, just a good quality
Good
thread?
quality, strong thread, yes.
Okay. I think the first thing we want to take a look at is how you're going to do the freehand or the stippling. We've talked about stippling.
Okay.
You want to show us?
All right. Just hold on to the thread, and you have the button to turn it on, and it starts sewing. As soon as you turn the machine on, you start moving it so that you don't break the thread.
Okay, I notice you're just using one hand,
Yes.
but there's two handles.
It's easier for me to just use one. From practice, you don't really need to have two hands. The machine is lightweight, and it moves very easily, so you can just move it with just almost two fingers like this. And it's really easy to move. And you just get busy doing this, and you just quilt and quilt and quilt till the bobbin runs out, and then you say, oh gosh, I got to make that bobbin again. I got to go fill the bobbin, put another bobbin in.
Okay, the bobbins you told me earlier were disposable, right?
Yes, we have.
And they do hold a lot of thread.
There's a pre-wound bobbin with a real fine nylon thread, and it holds 3 times the thread as a regular wound bobbin that you would wind yourself from a comb. So you can get a lot of quilting done and just with that one bobbin. And the less starts and stops you have makes your quilting look much better. If you're making something real fancy and you break the thread or bobbin runs out and you got to start again, why, it's just better to have a long thread on the bottom.
Yeah. I noticed that you're being very careful not to cross over the lines.
Doing my best not to.
Of course, stipple quilting is not supposed to, you're not supposed to cross over the lines.
That's true. Right.
That looks really good. Okay, let's take a look at some of the quilts that you brought that are yours, that have some stippling. Okay, this is a white-on-white quilt. Okay, I think that's the back. Do we want to look at the top? Okay. Okay, you want to tell us about this?
This is a memory quilt of mine. It's number 1000.
What? Okay, you're going to have to explain the 1000.
Well, I got my first quilting machine like these in 1989, and this is the 1000th quilt I've quilted since then.
You're kidding.
And I did this first of the year. I passed 1,200 now and almost to 13, or somewhere close to that anyway. I passed 1,100 and almost to 13.
Okay, and most of this is stippling?
All stippling, and I have little clamshells here. What I did was I just wanted to try all of these little patterns and do it just as long as I wanted to and as much as I wanted. And just turn on the machine and just quilt the same thing until I run out of bobbin. And then I'd put another bobbin in and do that.
That's a new concept in sampler quilts. You know that, to just take a design until you run out of bobbin.
Yeah, and this quilt also has in it number 1000 and has in it a memory of my mom and things that I wanted to put in there, little messages. And I have some some pictures of cowboy boots. Right here's a boot, and there's a hand. And in fact, there's two boots, one looking that way, one this way. You have to look around really to see what's in this quilt.
I see a
face right there.
face.
Yeah, right.
You're going to show us how you do a face?
Yeah, I can do that.
Whose face is this one?
That's the guy with the hat on.
I wonder who that is. I bet that's you, Ike.
Right.
Show us how you do that.
All right. But you might notice that the machine stopped with the needle up, which makes it easy to move it towards where you want someplace else. And you just move it over and start quilting. I want to make a face. It's easy to make the face if you put a hat first. And then you just make a couple of eyes, a nose, and a mouth. There's your face. Didn't get even...
Okay, and that's sort of a signature of yours, isn't it?
Right.
Your face with Ike written.
Right, I write my name a lot. That's very easy to do. You just, with these machines, you do it with one hand, and after a while you get to where you can just write just about anything you want to. If you want to make a star, you go like this. It's not a very good star, but you can make a star. Just whatever you want to do, you can do.
Now, Ike, I notice here that we have a lot of fabric here, so this would be a really large quilt.
Yes.
What happens if you have a smaller quilt?
You have these things here that you hook on, and you just put the small quilt in the center and hook them on there and stretch it tight, and you quilt the small quilt just like you do a big one.
Oh, okay, so,
Yes.
so it's no problem.
No problem whatsoever, no.
Okay, what about some other kinds of things? What kinds of things have you quilted?
I've quilted, a friend of mine wanted some seat covers for their car. They couldn't make their own, so I quilted the fabric.
What did you put in between? Not
I
a batting?
used thin batting.
Oh,
real
thin,
batting,
okay.
And warm and natural, if I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
And used that for batting. And when I quilted it, I put the kids' names on it and the date and a lot of information so that that car was identified by the seat covers as well as the tag.
What about other home deck things? I mean, what kinds of things would you?
I've quilted several different things. I quilted linings that was used in jackets. And again, I put the children's names. There was another lady I knew. And she had me quilt the fabric, and then she would make the jacket. And
oh, okay, so the jacket's not cut out. You're
I
really
just quilt the
quilting fabric for
quilt
her.
the fabric, right.
Great.
And I had one time I quilted a lot of little short feathers. It was about 4 inches long, scattered all around.
These are quilted feathers, I assume,
quilted
not real feathers.
Right, quilted feathers. And then she took that and made a real nice jacket out of it. Had whole cloth, real professional work. And every once in a while I get to do something different.
Right. Could you do like the bed, you know, the head of the bed? You know, sometimes you see them covered with fabric.
Oh, yes, I could do that, yeah. There wouldn't be no problem at all. You just quilt the fabric and then they put that on the headboard.
Oh, okay.
Right? And there's no limit to what the quilting that you do gets used for.
Okay.
I quilt a lot of Waverly fabric that people want to make bedspreads. I don't make the bedspread. I just quilt.
You just get into the quilting.
I just get to quilt them, and then they take them and put the piping and do all the things, and they've got a bedspread that would cost lots and lots of money that for a reasonable price.
Okay, go ahead.
These machines makes it possible for you to have real nice bedding at a affordable price.
Right. What about the batting that the machine can use, or you can use in the quilts on the machine?
You can use thin batting or thick batting, whatever you like. You can use 100% cotton. You use bonded batting. I use batting that's 1 inch thick and 3/4 inch thick, high loft and low loft. Lots of I get batting from all places.
Okay.
I don't furnish the batting. I just they bring me the quilt.
So whatever they have.
Right.
Right. What about something, you know, when we talked about home deck, what about something like a foam?
Yes, you can quilt foam with these too. Yes.
Great.
Right. One facial quilting I did was a lady whose father was in a rest home and in Florida where it's hot, and she didn't want nothing inside, so she had heavy flannel and a little piece top and I quilted it without nothing inside.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know for sure it would work, but it just come out fine.
You made it work, right?
Yeah, right. I get to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times where you just not really know for sure if it'll work. But you say, let me give it a try, and if it works, why it's good.
Good for you. Here's another quilt that you brought that I think is great. Is this your quilt?
No, this belongs to a girl named Ruth Dexter
Okay.
in Taggart, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And she pieced this top and sent it to me and told me that she wanted a feather in the border and stippling on the rest of it. And so that's what I fixed her up with. I'm kind of proud of this quilt. It's one of the first stippling quilts I did.
You're kidding. This was one of the first.
Yes, it's where I'll do this real fine stippling. Yeah.
Good. I think it's really important to notice that here we have a block that's a solid or almost solid color, looks solid.
Yes.
So the stippling really shows up. But the same stippling is on the piece block.
Right.
But
Didn't show at all.
it's not as important, right? This is the focal point.
This is I think this is a Sisters Oregon block. Is
I
what
think
this-
so.
Yes.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
If
would
not, our viewers will sure let us know
Correct,
about
that's
it.
right. It's in my book somewhere. In there, it's in there
It tells you.
someplace.
Okay. Now that we've taken a look at this feather border, now this is a stencil or a pattern or
This is a freehand quilting. right here.
freehand.
Right.
You're going to show us how to do it?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay. Let me get the quilt out of the way, and you show us how to do a feather.
All
You can
right.
just come right down in here and do it.
Okay. We'll just quilt over there.
Okay.
Just get over there with the quilting machine. I first make a line to run into something. And then I just keep going like this. Oh, I can't do it with that hand. Just make a half a heart on the side of the line till I get back to the starting point.
So this is what's called a continuous line design,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that you don't have to start and stop.
Going all right. I goofed that one up, Kay. You
What?
started- I goofed that one up. Let's make
You
another one.
goofed it up? No, you made a new design, right?
I did it. I got to go in the wrong way.
Well, that's when you call it a new design.
Yeah, well, this gives you practice to do it right next time.
Right.
See, this is coming out much better. See how much nicer this one is that other one. What this is, if you can imagine a heart cut in half, and that half a heart
Okay.
is on each side of that
Yeah.
original line. And when you get to the end, you can just stop it with anything you want to.
Always have to end with something fancy
Yeah, well,
there.
you got to
Right,
just you can't
right.
just turn it off and leave nothing out there, you know. Put something in
Okay,
it.
why don't you come around here and show us some of the other things this machine can do?
All right.
Okay, right here I notice we've got designs.
This is called pattern quilting, and you just have a stylus, and you have it follow a line to create this pattern.
Okay, now over here you are watching the needle.
Right.
When you work over here,
Over here, I just look at the pattern. I look up there once in a while to see if anything's going all right, but most of the time I watch this, and we can take off right where we're at and do some of this
Sure.
if you want to. This is a little heart, and we got a loop. And you can call this a leaf, or you can call this a heart.
whatever you want, right?
I feel good at whatever you want to call it.
Okay,
You just continue that line. Well, I forgot to make all of that heart, didn't I?
okay, but we
Yep.
can see.
All right, so goes this way.
So this is a little bit like trace a design.
Right. And every time you stop, the needle comes up. So that if I was here and wanted to move back to that end, I would push the bottom thread is cut by pushing that button. And then all I have to do is cut my top thread
Okay.
and I can move back to this end of the quilt.
Okay, so it's always ready to move
Right.
when you cut it. Okay.
And if I want to do that same design on another line.
Okay.
Just here over there. Then I just turn it on, and the bottom thread is picked up automatically. The thread cutter cuts it just to the right length
Oh, that's great.
so that you don't have to fool with all those threads underneath. And then you can make the same pattern again.
I think I could do that.
Won't you give it a try?
Well, I tell you, I'm going to, but I want you to show me some channel quilting because we haven't
All
taken a
right.
look at the channel quilting.
All right.
Whereabouts?
Well,
How about right over here?
All right, we'll cut the bottom thread,
And that's just by pushing the button.
pushing the button, and the needle is up, so we don't have to do anything to get the needle up. Move over here, and we tighten down our channel lock.
Your what?
Channel lock is this little set screw there
That does what?
that holds the machine from moving. It keeps it from going this way. You
Okay.
just turn it on and walk right along beside it.
So you're not steering this.
No, you just push it along. You push it with this hand up here. Like this. And when you want to stop, you just push the stop button, the off and on button.
Oh, we've got a stop button. Is that the same as this button here?
No, that's the thread cutter.
That's the, okay, the thread cutter?
And you don't cut the thread till the needle comes up, right?
Right.
Because you don't want to cut the needle.
No, that wouldn't be too good, but it comes up
It
automatically
comes
when
up
you stop.
automatically,
Yeah.
right? And you push that, cut the bottom thread,
Okay.
and you're ready to move and quilt somewhere else.
Okay, can I try?
Sure.
What do you
We
want
get-
me to do?
We'll move this little bit here, and I'll
Okay.
get you started right down here on this.
Am I going to follow the pattern?
Yeah, you might as well. Do you want to follow the pattern, or you want to go out here and do some freehand?
Oh, I
quilting?
want to do freehand.
Let's go out front.
Okay.
Then. All right. You want to
Can I do it from here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me get it started for you.
Okay,
We're just
do that.
Okay, you just get a hold of the handle.
Okay. Now, I have never done this before. Well, I think my stippling needs a little bit of practice.
It won't take you long to get onto it.
No, hey, this is real easy.
We have a speed control,
Oh, you had a speed control?
so that if you want to go slow, you can go. You were moving kind of slow, so I just slowed you down. see?
Oh, okay.
How easy that is?
That is real easy. Now, to stop it,
I'll just bring it back up to my speed.
Okay.
That's good enough right here. We'll just end that with a couple of hearts. Push the off button, and that's it.
Well,
See how?
that's easy, isn't it?
Sure is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, isn't it?
How much practice do you think it would take to get?
I had a friend of mine come to visit me and stayed a week, and he quilted 7 quilts when he was there. He went home and sent me the money to buy a machine. Now that's how easy it is.
Does
He
that
had to
mean that
sit-
anybody comes to visit you has to make quilts?
No, but it's fun.
Okay.
He had really a fun time. Yeah.
Well, I think this is great. You know, we've taken a look at a lot of the options that a quilting machine can give us,
Yes.
and that's really great. And I want to thank you for coming and for bringing your machine and showing it to us.
Okay, I really had a fine time.
Good. And when people see you at quilt shows, they're going to come up and say, "Hi, Ike, I know you."
Yeah, they probably will.
And thanks so much for being with us.
Funding for So Many Quilts was provided by Leisure Arts, a leading publisher and distributor of quality needlework and craft publications and products. American Professional Quilting Systems, ultimate hand-guided quilting machines made in America's heartland. Crafter's Choice, America's #1 crafts club. Oxmoor House, Bernina of America, and OmniGrid.
Mary Ann Fons.
And I'm Liz Porter. Welcome to So Many Quilts.
Today we're looking at a really stunning contemporary quilt made by Marilyn Badger of Oregon. It combines bright batik fabrics and some interesting bright plaids in a really fairly simple patchwork design that is enhanced by the beautiful machine quilting.
Oh, I like the strong diagonal lines that Marilyn has used that really emphasize the diagonal lines of the patchwork. The quilting really draws your eye to that and really carries that woven ribbon effect out very, very well in this design.
It's a very graphic quilt, and what I love in this particular quilt is her use of circles as quilting designs. And on this particular square, the blocks are divided by squares every so often. We have, what, 6 or 7 concentric circles that are probably about 1/4 inch apart, and they are just perfect.
When they're perfect, the ends match up, they're not squash looking,
Right.
and I think nice straight diagonal lines and smooth circles and curves are some of the hardest things to either hand or machine quilt.
Well, and if you were hand quilting, you wouldn't do this many circles. It would just take so long.
But Marilyn has a trick.
She has a trick, and we're going to
she's going to show us. So we're going to go over and meet Marilyn and have her show us her tricks for getting these diagonals and getting nice circles.
Hi, Marilyn.
Hi.
It's nice to have you.
I'm so glad to have you back with us, Marilyn.
Nice to be back.
We are excited to see you do some demonstrations for us today and show us how you work some of your magic with machine quilting with the American Professional Machine.
All right.
So we're going to start with a top. Is this one of yours or something that you're working on for someone?
Well, it's a quilt I'm working on for someone. And I started it with by doing a border pattern, which I have laying here on the machine. And I've rolled and done a series of circles, and then we worked like a sunburst around it.
And the sunburst goes in this plain square area, which is a light-colored fabric. It's kind of a sponge print, so it's sort of solid, and it's a perfect place for some fancy quilting.
Right.
Well, I'm excited to see you do the circles.
Okay.
I can't draw them with a compass much to quilt them.
Well, you can't miss with this.
Oh.
We have an attachment for the American Professional Machine. It's called the Hartley Fence, and it enables you to do a series of circles, and then when you want to take the circles off, you can do diagonals. So I have it set up to do 4 circles in the center of this block.
Okay. And this is an exclusive attachment at this point for the American Professional Machine.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All right.
All right, well, let's see how to do circles here.
Okay, we're going to start with our largest circle and work in, because that helps me to set it up inside the block. I know where I'm starting, where it's centered. So
there's always room to the inside, but not necessarily to the outside.
Right, then you'd know how far to the edge of the block all the way around, and you could get that charted so it would be perfect.
Gauge that a little, your spacing a little easier.
So with the American Professional Machine, we have a 1-stitch button. You just push it, and it'll bring your bobbin thread up for you.
And that keeps from having the threads snarl on the back side.
Right.
And then hate those when I get them.
You can also hit it a couple of times just to lock your stitches. When you're working out in the center of a quilt, you do need to lock them.
So that they won't come out then later when the quilt is used and washed. They're
you don't
secure.
have to tie knots in those threads or anything. That secures the stitching.
You can. It depends on your customer. If they want the quilter's knots and buried, then you can do that too. But at least you have both of them on the top, and you can do it.
Okay. I'll bet you like the customers that don't want them.
I do.
I would go for those people
back and say, bury your own.
Yeah, I can bury them. That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to stand here and push the start and go button, and just guide it around.
Track right around and.
Just try to keep a steady, even stitch. That
and then
determines
you stop
your length.
when you just pass your beginning point just a little bit. When you stop, and the smoothness of how fast you move the machine keeps your stitches even.
Right.
But your circles always maintain by that compass type attachment.
Right. It's locked into the hole that relates to that circle, and it can't go anywhere.
How many circles did you say we had to do
We're
here?
going to do 4. Okay.
I think we need to watch you do one more.
Okay.
And then we might get brave enough. And, and do you think your customer would mind if Mary Ann and I tried a circle?
Not at all, because you can do these perfect.
Okay.
And if she minds, you can take them out.
You can tell us it's okay. You know.
Okay, I've just slipped it into the next hole up on the circle attachment, and I'm not going to clip my threads. I'll do all that later.
Okay.
Oh, it's so nice. The spacing is perfect. It looks wonderful.
And so by overlapping just by a few stitches, that's just like a back stitch. It's the same principle, really.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, it's my
you
turn,
ready to do one?
Okay, you get it
All
set
right,
up for
Marilyn's
me.
gonna set it in.
It's a very simple
I'm
thing.
going to come
It's in
around
the
over
next
here.
hole.
Okay, so I hold the button down. I just push it down. I don't have to hold it the whole way
Right.
around, okay?
Just release, push and release.
Okay, it may not be as good as yours, but...
Perfect.
I have a little more back stitching there than maybe we need, but okay.
A little slow with the trigger finger. All right, well, we'll see how I do.
Okay,
You know,
all
it's
right.
easy to watch.
Yes,
and we'll
right.
see if I can make one, too.
Okay, we'll move it up into
Now,
the
my
final
circle's
circle.
smaller, so
very
it won't
small.
take me very long to go around mine.
Right.
Right? All right, so I'm on, and I go around. Oh, quick. Oh,
You went around quick.
I stopped a little bit over.
But you can just go back around again if you want to,
And then
because
it
it's
would
right
make
on the
it-
same stitching.
And that would make it look real even.
Yeah.
Oh, my circle went really
Yeah,
fast.
fast.
Those are fun.
Yeah,
I
they're
enjoy
great.
doing circles.
You get a good rhythm going and they
Well,
go
and the
fast.
circles are so pleasing with
Right.
all the straight lines of so many patchwork seams. Really soften
Yes.
the design so much.
Often
it can be
the
a nice complement
a
to what we're
curve is
doing.
So often the perfect...
Okay, now we're going to decorate the circle, right?
Okay, yes, we're going to work a little sunburst around it. We want to clip our thread, our top thread. And on this machine, we also
And
have
do we need to clip the bobbin
the
thread,
bobbin
too,
thread
then?
is just by pushing this button and it'll cut
I
your
love
bobbin
that.
thread.
Oh, so we don't have to stick our head under there and
No.
worry about poking a hole in the back of the quilt with scissors. I've done
Right,
it. It's
or
so
getting
bad.
down on your knees and
Yeah.
fishing
It
around
means you
under there.
put your name patch in the middle of your quilt to cover the hole.
Yeah, right, we've had to do that.
Yeah. It'd be embarrassing on someone else's
Yeah.
quilt, so that thread clipping attachment is really nice for the bobbin thread.
Right, and so
So-
I have a pattern here for the sunburst that I'm going to work around these circles. And basically, I've just Xeroxed a pattern. I've taped it down on the table in the place where I want to work them. And
And you kind of did a trial run without stitching to make sure of your placement.
right,
And you've marked a position that you're going to start stitching
right.
with a little X, and we're going to go from there so we know when we meet back up
And you,
with where
right,
it is.
you
I'm
need
glad
that
you're doing this
be-
part, Mel.
because you're going to be, rather than watching the quilt, you're going to be watching the pattern.
Right.
And so you need to know, you need to have a stopping point on that pattern so you know, so you don't have to glance up at the quilt so much
Right.
where to stop. I
Yeah,
can
so
see
you
Don't
lose
go
your track.
round and
round and
round.
round.
Right, and you always want to start on the inside of, or at a point, rather than out in a curve, because you'll never come back into that curve in just the
I
right
see.
place.
I'm sure you
So-
learned that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The smart places to start.
So we're going to pull our bobbin thread up again and
This is the snarl
take a
preventer
little,
here.
take another little stitch.
Now we lock
And
the
I'll just keep
stitches.
these threads right in here for the time being out of the way so we don't get tangled up
Okay.
in them. And with the laser stylus that's on this machine, we're just going to use that and follow the pattern as closely as we can. You don't have to worry about staying exactly on it as long as you're smooth.
Okay.
So you have a little red beam of light that's
Right.
going to trace your
Just
design.
a-
That's very accurate.
Yes.
it
Little
looks
red
like.
dot.
Seems very trendy.
Okay. Oh, yes,
Yes,
it
it's
is.
so technical.
And here we go. And you'll notice that I'm leaving off part of this pattern because it just doesn't fit for what I want. So you can adapt some of the patterns to do whatever you want. You don't have to use the whole thing.
Looking like the sun.
And
So
there's
we
your
could
X.
cheat and watch top and bottom.
Top and bottom.
Yeah.
Yes, it's really a neat the way you've adapted this design because it seems to complement the quilt very well. It's a very contemporary looking quilt, which a lot of your things are very modern looking. They're not
Yes.
old fashioned stuff. And this little sunburst just seems to go perfectly with it. It's very
really does.
happy.
It accents those circles and just gives you a little bit of fancy stitching around them.
So we've got the perfect circles made, and we've embellished those circles to make a starburst. Now I want to see us do those diagonal lines. Mel.
Okay.
So you had do a little changeover,
Right.
correct?
We're
Use
just
the
going to
same
take our
basic
circle
platform.
attachment off and put a little wheel in here that will follow our diagonal attachment.
So you've got special little tools that this comes with the attachment.
Special little wrenches
Uh-huh.
that make it so much faster and easier. put our wheel right here.
Well, I think it's nice the tools work exactly with this machine, so no one is going to borrow them to do something else with them. And so you're not going to ever lose them.
Well, it's
That's
kinda like
right.
hammers. You
Yes.
know, I can't count the number of hammers I bought, and someone in my family wanders off the hammer or a screwdriver or
Pair of
something.
scissors.
These are your very own tools for your toys.
Right, and you don't need to take them anywhere else to use
Right.
in your sewing room or
That's
for
good.
anything else. Now, when I do diagonals, it comes in handy to just mark that original diagonal setting after you have eyeballed it or whatever, and then you've got it on there, and you don't have to, when you change your angles, you
Right.
don't have to mess with trying
And
to
you know
find it
you're at
again.
least close here
Right.
for, might have to fine tune a little bit, but you've basically got it figured
Right.
out. Now, when you're doing the diagonals, Marilyn, when you were actually quilting on this, so they're using one color of thread for the plain blocks with the circles, and another color for the diagonals. So you would probably do all the tan squares, and then change, if you wanted to change thread color, you change thread color and then do all of the diagonals with that new thread color,
Right.
rather than having to keep changing
Right,
threads.
and then do all of my diagonals in one direction, and then
Right.
come back, roll the quilt back, and do all of them in the next direction.
So you
never have
don't
to change
switch
the
back,
angle.
but it didn't take you very long to switch. But if
No.
you were working on a project, it would just make sense to do all of one kind of thing at one
Yes,
time and
you
then
do want
change.
to save some time. here.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It's all about making a little money.
Yeah, right.
Well,
So you can support your fabric habit, right?
Exactly.
Everyone's looking for a way to do that.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to just pull up my bobbin thread like I did, and I'm going to do a little back stitch and then go forward.
Okay.
So this is what I'm doing.
All
When I
right.
get up there, I want to stop as close to that seam as I can, and then I can bury it in the seams, and if I had a continuation, I would pick up in that seam, and you wouldn't see where you stop and start.
And the seam kind of helps hide those little bit smaller stitches or your overlap in your stitching.
Right,
Something I noticed about this that is really wonderful, that you have no marks whatsoever on this quilt.
Right.
Using the fence for the circles, there are no marks there. And then for the pattern, the little spikes around the circle by using the laser
laser
stylus. And, you know, marking is a big problem because we hate to put any kind of chemical marker on. If you just use pencil, maybe you can't see it. Maybe you make an error mark and you have that problem. So that just negates all those kind of problems that we struggle with sometimes.
right. And when you get someone else's quilt that you're quilting, you don't want to be responsible for that. So
Plus
if I want to
marking-
mark it, that's fine.
Marking's really
Marking's a-
tedious, too.
It's a lot of work to do. I've always said, you know, the person who invents the perfect marker is going to make a fortune,
Yes.
but it's really nice to avoid having to do any kind of marking on
right.
the quilt.
Do most customers let you decide what to quilt, or do some of them have an idea of what they want?
They do. Some do. Some have their own ideas, but most of them just say, do whatever you think's right.
Oh,
That's
right.
They have confidence in your
Right.
decision.
Well,
Can
right.
we look at some of the things
Sure.
that you've brought with you that you've done some quilting on? And I
Sure.
always think that choosing a quilting design is really a difficult decision. Maybe we can slide the machine down
Okay.
a little and we'll lay the
Open this one out.
open the quilt up a little bit and look at what you've done with the pattern. I think we can see what's happening here.
This one really showcases Marilyn's ability with her machine, her American Professional machine, for doing these diagonals, because it's a zigzag set, and the quilting really enhances that setting.
Right, and this is a quilt that she marked with pencils, so I did have the marks, and it was a good thing because this center, when you have it on the machine, you can't really tell where the center is sometimes. So it was nice because this is all different diagonals
Right.
than what is out here.
Okay, so you
she
followed the
marked all
pencil
those.
mark on this.
And I just lined the fence diagonal
Okay.
up with this mark here and this mark here.
And even though it was marked, you still used the fence because that helped you pull that smooth, even, non-wobbly line.
It would have been impossible to do these without it.
Right.
Now, then you used the compass attachment for the fence to put the
Right.
circles.
Just some
the
interlocking
blocks?
circles in those blocks to get them quilted down. And
This is a good example where you can see the quilting a lot more on the light fabric, but just this circular amount in there on these pattern
Softens
fabrics,
that.
it's beautiful. It's
Well,
great.
and those blocks are strip-pieced with strong angular lines. Then I like
Right.
what the curve, how that
Soften
softens
them.
those strong
It's
lines.
beautiful.
That's lovely.
Let me grab another quilt.
Okay. Now, how long would it take you, Marilyn, to quilt a quilt like this, typically?
this one would probably not be more than 3 hours.
Ah, that's appealing. So we
Beautiful.
can go from being a club of, I met a group once that called themselves Tops Only, which I thought was, you know, pretty good name for a lot of quilters. We all have a considerable number of UFOs or unfinished objects that we're worried about how to get finished. And what your American Professional Machine does for you is let you go from being tops only to quilts only, finished quilts.
Yeah.
So
Here's
that's
another.
wonderful.
Now, is this one of your projects, or is this one
This
that you
is one
quilted?
of mine that I did on a little workshop,
maybe hit
tessellations.
hit the button.
And it is just overall quilting. I mean, I've just freehand.
Oh.
And it's kind of a takeoff on what Carol Breyer-Fallert does. I had a book by her, and I just wanted to try it in the variegated rayon thread. And it's just a lot of fun to do.
The thread is gorgeous, and you can use a thread like this in the large Ultimate machine.
Right, right. This is just 40 weight sulky that they sell. for
Now,
all
do you have
machines.
to make a lot of adaptation to use this type of thread?
No, I just lower the tension so that it pulls out of there fairly free. And I do lay it down on a spool holder instead of having it stand upright.
And so it feeds off with
Very
It's happier
smooth.
coming
gets your
off.
tension a little more even.
This is neat. This is like stippling, but it's not exactly that stipple pattern that we've seen a lot. It's a little bit different. They're almost like feather motifs kind of subtly in there.
Right. I like to come up with new ideas for fillers instead of stippling. A lot
Now,
of people are doing that.
when you did this, did you do this freehand, or do you have a pattern?
No, it's freehand.
So you just kind of go
Started up at the top
go
and
where you want
filled in.
and fill it in. Well, the variegated thread just
Beautiful.
is lovely on that because it shows up more some places and less others, and really a nice touch on that
I
design.
understand that you're also teaching workshops now. Not only do you take on quilting, doing quilts that other people have made, you do a lot of your own work, but you're also giving classes in your studio for people who are thinking of buying a machine or have bought a machine, and you take them through all the steps so that they walk away with their undergraduate degree and machine quilting.
Or at least have
Or
enough
graduate.
confidence to get started. Yes,
And so do you have very many at a time in a class? or-
Maximum of 4, minimum of 2. And we go all day from 9 until 5:30 until they're ready to go home and have a nap.
for one day. So it's a one-day intensive, like learning French in one
Really
day.
intense. We
Yeah.
start
So
from the
there's
beginning.
enough demand for this machine quilting for you to feel comfortable with sharing your skills and not knowing that it's not going to put yourself out of business.
Right, yes. It doesn't matter how many machines are in the area. When you get decent at running the machine, there's always plenty of work.
Well,
There's
people
lots
love
of tops around.
Well, see, people feel kind of guilty about those tops because they're unfinished. So you're helping them get over the guilt, or anyone who's machine quilting and getting our quilts done, then we feel happy we can then give them to our family or put them on the bed and
Right,
not
and use
in the
them.
closet. Yeah, that's good.
Can we look at one more?
Yes, let me get.
Oh, this one's
Now
really
this quilt,
colorful.
this quilt belongs to, there are 4 people involved in this quilt, and it was done in a Margaret Miller workshop. It's called Canned Heat. And so the owner who made the blocks wanted me to quilt flames in here. So when you lay it out, you see that the flames come up toward the center, and then I just stippled out as close as I could to make them pop out a little bit more. Since the quilt is so busy, you can't see a whole lot. But
So this is one where the quilting adds texture, but you don't really see the actual design that much.
You want it to kind of blend in, but give a little
And
feature.
you've used the variegated thread again on this so that it stands out more in some places, less in others, and that's really a nice touch.
Well, what's so neat is that the quilting then even goes along with the theme of the quilt. I mean, you can really bring a lot of creativity to this.
Yes.
And you do a fair number of garments too, right? The
Yes,
garment
I
that you're
do.
wearing, yes?
Yes, and to quilt one of these, you just mount a piece of muslin on your machine and pin the pieces down and quilt like
Quilting?
crazy.
That's wonderful.
Well, and then now does the garment shrink up at all as you're working?
It will pull up a little bit, so I always cut my pieces the next size up.
So, you get to lose weight
Yeah,
when it gets quilted.
It's a machine that will do everything you need.
Well, I'd like to look at one more of your quilts, Marilyn, that
Okay.
you've brought along. And would you tell us about this example?
Okay, this is actually it's a raffle quilt. Carol Moss from the Gold Beach Quilt Guild does a project graduation quilt every year for a safe and sober graduation party, and she brought it to me at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and wanted to pick it up at 9 o'clock the next morning. So we had to work fast. Therefore, the circles in the centers go really fast, and instead of doing straight lines across, I did intentionally wavy lines so that, you know, it would go faster and you wouldn't really be disappointed if they didn't hit just right. So.
And that's a good point. If you're not sure if you can go straight across, don't try to go straight across. Just kind of make it go. Now, by choosing the circular design for the white areas, you get kind of a a ball effect. It enhances the fact that you've got a illusion of a kind of a circular white area. And this design is called snowball, isn't it?
Right. Snowball.
So by emphasizing that with the circular quilting, you kind of keep that theme going also.
Right. And the fabrics are wonderful. You've got a lot of, or Carol put a lot of the batiks, the new bright batik fabrics in there, and some of those sponge prints, and really kind of a jewel tone effect. So it's really neat that, like so many quilters, that Carol is doing a service project like this for her community. I'm always proud of quilters when I hear about those things.
Yeah, and she always does a beautiful job.
Now, you said she brought it to you at 1 in the afternoon and wanted it the next morning. Did you have to work all night on this?
No, I quit at 5, so
I'm
it's about
impressed.
4 hours.
I'm impressed.
Well, it's always so much fun to look at your work, Marilyn, and to see how you work your magic on these quilts. And so it's just been such a pleasure to have you visit today, and we enjoyed so much seeing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Well,
It was my
thank
pleasure.
you for letting us help quilt, too.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. Anytime.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great.
The teaching series combines the talents of America's premier quilting innovator, Kay Wood, and her guests. They present styles and ideas that span the globe, including quilting, new patterns, home decor, and even wearable art. It's simply the best in what is new, as well as tips, techniques, and time savers in strip quilting. Now let's join the always entertaining and informative Kay Wood.
Welcome to all my quilting friends out there. On today's program, we're going to take a look at some more work on a professional quilting machine. Then I'm going to show you how to strip piece log cabin diamonds. And we'll finish up with some more machine quilting tips on your own sewing machine. First, I'd like you to meet my guest. This is Julie Borg. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Kay.
And Julie is a consultant with the American Professional Quilting Systems. And she's going to show us some really neat things on the quilting machine, right?
That's right.
Now, I know you're going to do a pattern. We've already started here. But how do you decide where to start on a pattern?
Well, you want to find a spot that's on the outside edge so that when you start, you can move the long threads out of the way so you don't quilt them into your block.
Okay, and you were using a pattern today, right?
I have the pattern back here on the quilting table, and I'm going to use the stylus to follow the lines of the quilting pattern. You can use any quilting pattern that you use for hand quilting as long as you find a way to connect the lines so that they're continuous.
Okay, let's see how you do it. That's a really pretty pattern, but it looks pretty intricate.
Yep, it is very pretty, but it's so easy to do with the American machine because it's so light.
And it looks like it's a lot of fun to do, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I really enjoy it.
That's a great design. You make it look so easy. Now, is this called anything different than a pattern stitch?
No, it's used to fill open blocks on your quilts. Like if you have a plain block that you want to put a pattern in, this is what you could do.
Okay.
And now I'm going to cut the thread. First I will push the thread cutter to cut the bobbin thread, and then I can cut the top threads.
Okay.
And now I'm going to show you how to do some meandering.
And you brought a little quilt here for us. I'll just move it here, and this has meandering. Now, Julie, what is the difference between the meandering and a stippling stitch?
Basically just the size. The stippling is used to highlight other areas that you've quilted, like a feather.
So to flatten that area.
Right, it flattens out the background. And the meandering is used as an all-over type of quilting to quilt the whole quilt.
Now, where would you start doing a meandering stitch like this?
I start in the upper left-hand corner and work in from there, and I work my way across and down and then back up and continue across the quilt that way.
Okay, never crossing lines.
Right. You try to avoid that at all costs.
Now, the meandering and stippling, are those techniques that you cover in the workshops that you teach?
Yes, we do. We cover that as well as loading, border designs, filling open blocks, cross-hatching, echo quilting, outlining, a wide range of things as well as answering any questions that people may have.
Sounds like about a 6-week workshop, right?
Well, it probably could be, but it only takes a day. It's a hands-on workshop where people get the chance to try each technique that I show them so that they'll remember it when they go home to their own machines.
Great. Well, one day, that sounds like a lot to cover.
Yeah, but I'm always available for questions so people can call and ask.
Great. Okay, let's see how you do the meandering.
Okay. Well, the Ultimate one has a really nice feature called the single stitch button, and it allows you to pull your bobbin thread up with just a little tap on the button.
So it comes up automatically.
Mm-hmm. And now we will start the meandering. You want to vary your line as you go so that people don't see a certain pattern to it.
You know, of all the stitches you've shown us, I would almost bet that this would take a little bit more practice because of the spacing of the lines.
Well, it does take some practice, but it's very easy to do. The American machine is so light and maneuverable that it's just very simple.
What do you say to the people who want a pattern to do this?
Well, draw your own.
Do your own thing, right?
Yeah. It's just very much just freehand and however you feel you want to go.
So you're going to go completely around this block with
Right.
this design.
Normally on a quilt, when you have an open block design like this, every other block will be pieced and then one will be plain, and that's where you'd fill in your open design. And so then the meandering would end up going all around those blocks
Almost
that you
like a
filled.
sashing.
Right. And it really gives it a neat look and pretty texture.
And you make it look so easy. And you know something? I have tried it, and I can verify it is that easy.
It is.
Easy to move and easy to do the designs, and fun.
It is a lot of fun, and actually it's a lot easier to do on a quilting machine than it is on your sewing machine.
Well, I can vouch for that for a big quilt.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Julie. This has been great, and it gives us another option for how to finish our quilts.
Thanks, Kay.
Let's join the always entertaining and informative Kay Wood.
Hi, I'm Kay Wood, and welcome back to Kay's Quilting Friends. On today's show, I'm going to share with you some tips and techniques for using your serger for quilts. I know a lot of you have sergers, and we're going to be taking a look at some ideas for lap robes. But once you get your quilt tops all pieced, then what do you do with them? Well, today I want you to meet my guest, and this is Marilyn Badger. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Kay.
It's great to have you here.
It's nice to be here.
Marilyn is from the American Professional Quilting System, and she's going to give us tips on how to quilt those quilts, right?
I sure am.
And what are we going to take a look at today?
Well, today I'm going to show you how easy it is to do circles.
You're kidding.
Nope.
Okay, let me see a circle.
Okay. First, I want to bring my bobbin thread up. So I'll just hit this one stitch button right here, hold on to my top thread, move it off a little bit, and bring up that bobbin thread.
That's as easy as it is.
That's it.
You don't have to go underneath or anything.
No, And then I'm just going to take one little stitch there to lock it, which
Okay.
you don't really need to do with the circles because you'll come right back in and go over that stitching, so essentially it's the
Right.
same as a back stitch.
But it's sort of nice to do it.
Right. Makes you feel better. Then I'm just going to turn on the button and just guide it around. And you want to go fairly slow and evenly. If you don't stitch it, if you try to go too fast, you're going to get larger stitches here and there, and you want your stitches to be pretty uniform.
So more of an even movement.
Right.
Well, that looked pretty easy.
Very easy.
Now, that's a fairly big circle.
Right.
We can do any size circle?
Yes.
Well, how do you accomplish that?
Well, I have an attachment here that locks down to the table with this handle. You position it wherever you want, lock it down so that it's not going anywhere. It has the circle attachment here in the center with holes. This pin just goes into whatever hole you want to use, and we've moved it up too, and now we can work another circle right
So that's
inside of
just going to
there.
pivot around, and that's attached to
Right.
to the machine and
You
guides
just
the needle.
and you just use a slight pressure outwardly as you go around. It shows you how easy you can use these machines. It takes no strength, don't get tense, and relax and
Have a good time.
that's right.
Okay, you moved it a little bit. You're going to show me another circle?
Right, this is, I skipped one hole, and now we are going to go one right inside of here. You notice I didn't even cut my thread. I save that and do it all when I'm done. After I take the quilt off, then I trim my threads up, or the customer can do it if she wants to save some money. And you can just keep going.
What do they go in increments?
They're in 1/4 inch. I skipped one, so that's
so
like
you
a
can
1/2
get
inch.
really tight for
Right. And you can get as big as quilting the whole surface here that you can quilt.
Oh, really?
Right.
Now we have to say something about this. This was designed by your husband.
Yes, it
wasn't
was, and it's called the Hartley fence.
Because his name's Hartley.
Right.
Okay.
And you can take the circle attachment off and put a diagonal on and do perfect diagonals too, which was impossible before without some help.
Right, right. Okay, what else are we going to do here with our circles?
Well, we can just put this back in the first circle that we did and loosen the brake, come right back down here to the edge, the very far edge of the previous circle that we did.
So you're just touching the edge?
Right. I put my needle down just so that I can adjust it out and get any slack out. And then I'll tighten my brake, and we can do a circle that just butts right up next to that previous one. And you can use this pattern just as an all-over quilt pattern. And it leaves interesting little areas in between the circles where they come together that you can do stippling or any other kind of little quilting you want to do in there.
It right on,
perfect.
doesn't it? Now, do you have to do a complete circle?
No, you don't. You can do half circles. You can actually do the Baptist fan by just doing quarter circles and moving it along. And I also don't cut my threads in between that, and you can do the whole row and never stop. Just wait for that needle positioner to cycle in and go again.
Well, hey, that sounds easy enough. Do we have some, let's take a look at some quilts that have some finished circles.
Okay. Yes, this one is a jewel box, and it has circles worked in those center blocks in variegated thread, just several inside of one another. And then it has also diagonal stitching up through the blocks with the diagonal attachment. This is also has circles worked inside of those main blocks. That's a Delectable Mountain. And I just worked every circle on the, well, I guess about half the circles on the attachment.
Okay.
And this is also, this one has interlocking circles in those blocks. I just worked 4 circles, interlocking them in variegated thread. So, and then the diagonals I marked on the quilt first and then worked them because there was a pattern that came out in the center that you needed to know where you were. So generally you don't have to mark a quilt to do the diagonals.
Okay.
And this one is all circles. This is a little quilt called Juicy Fruit, and it's quilted in monofilament thread. It's all hand dyes. It's an original, and it's from Margaret Miller's newest book called Easy Pieces, which will be out this fall.
Well, these are great, and you sure do make it look easy.
Thank you. It is easy.
And I'll be right back with some serger ideas for quilts.
Entertaining and informative, Kay Wood.
Welcome back, all my quilting friends. On today's show, we're going to take a look at some techniques on a quilting machine. Then we're going to go into seeing some of the Star Maker Challenge pieces. That we have a challenge every year on those. But before we do that, let's meet our guest. This is Jeff Jokums. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Kay.
Jeff is the president of the American Professional Quilting Systems.
You got it right.
And Jeff, how did you get into quilting machines?
Well, basically back about 1983, just out of high school at the time,
Right.
I stumbled really upon a quilting machine that was very similar to what we now manufacture in concept. However, they were old, refurbished quilting machines. They were limited, but in principle, they were the same thing.
Sort of basic and primitive, as you said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we just took the concept and expounded upon it. And thanks to some smart gentlemen that are with us, we came up with a machine that was lightweight. It's made out of the same materials that aircraft are made out of, very, very lightweight materials. And I think the work that these people put into this really contributed to the new acceptance among traditional quilters as far as accepting what you can now do in a creative aspect on a professional quilting machine?
Well, I think it's great because, you know, as the work has progressed and as it's gotten, well, to a better quality, you might say,
Exactly.
then it is accepted.
I know well, one reason we started to get into this, because years ago, frankly, I needed the money, and I'd realized that there were so many people like yourself, and that's kind of how we met when you contacted us, that you had been showing people how to make quilt tops for years, but you never got them quilted.
That's right.
And I just did some investigating, and I realized that so many ladies for years and years had been sending their quilt tops away to have them quilted by machine and waiting months to get them back. So I thought this might be a good thing to consider for a business venture. But at the time, you could only do a continuous design over some of these beautiful quilt tops. And with the new technology and designs that we've put into the quilting machines, you can now do, you know, very creative artwork with the machine.
Yeah, that's great. I understand you have some friends you want us to meet.
Yeah, we brought part of our flock here today. I'd like to introduce you to Ike. I believe you've met once or twice before.
All of our viewers know Ike.
This is Ike Winter. We call him the Quilting Cowboy.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Ike.
And Kay.
We're glad to have you here, Ike. How did you meet Ike?
Well, we were exhibiting some quilting at the Los Angeles County Fair, and this average person off the street walked up in your average shirt and your average hat. No, the truth is, Ike had never really done any machine quilting before, and he's a wonderful example of what someone can do with just a little bit of practice and not being intimidated because the machine is big or whatever. And he's quite a success story right now.
Right.
Proud of him.
Yeah. Did he have the shirt and the hat on when you met him?
No.
No, I think it was overalls. No.
No, I didn't have overalls.
But he has a fan club now, Jeff, so you'll have to get his signed autograph.
I'm jealous.
You also have another guest?
Yes, Julie Borg from near Minneapolis. And it's a long story, I won't get into it, but Julie came across the quilting machine after falling off a horse. And there's a story to that. But anyway, she had no experience whatsoever. She does workshops and seminars in her home. She does some gorgeous work. Again, it should be encouragement to the average person who might be intimidated by starting, you know, on a quilting machine.
Right. And our viewers have met Julie before, too.
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to leave us to these two people?
I'll let them do their stuff.
Okay.
See you later, Kay.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Julie, what are we going to see today?
Well, today we are quilting a feather border. And I'm following a pattern here in the back using the stylus to follow the lines of the pattern.
I see you've already got part of it sewn.
Right. And now we're going to finish the feather. My eyes will be down here on the stylus, but yours can be watching the quilting.
That's more fun. I can just imagine this feather in the border of a quilt. It just is gorgeous.
Julie does a great job on this feather. Everything I've seen of hers is just beautiful.
Well, I can tell she's a beautiful machine quilter, but tell me, on the quiet, is she really a good teacher?
Oh, you bet. She really is. I learned a great deal from her at that workshop that I went to hers. Yeah.
Yeah, Julie teaches workshops, a one-day workshop, right, Julie? Where people come in and study with you and learn at least some of what you know, right?
Right, and they get to try it themselves, too.
Okay, what are we going to do now?
Well, this machine also has a nice feature called the channel lock, and I'm able to sew straight, parallel channels with it without even more than lifting a finger. I will set the channel lock, and I turn the machine on, and it's so easy to maneuver, I can do it with one finger.
And you don't have to worry about your lines being parallel, do you?
Nope, the channel lock takes care of that.
Does it all for you.
And now I just loosen it, and we're ready to go on to another area.
Well, thank you, Julie. I want to just thank you so much for sharing this and for being on other shows with us. And I know a lot of our viewers would be interested in your workshops.
Thanks, Kay. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, Ike, now your specialty. What are we going to do?
I'm going to do a feather freehand in this small block.
Okay.
And put a little stippling around it. Get my machine over here. And pick up my thread with that little button.
Okay.
And I'm just going to go with a little bit of a move like this. And then make this. Now this feather is not as uniform as Julie's, but it still looks like a feather.
This is an Ike feather.
Yeah, this is a freehand feather. So then when you get to the end, you just come off of that and just do a little bit of meandering, stippling, whatever you want to call this. When you do this pattern on a full-size quilt, and do it on every set-together block, but then it looks like that feather just sort of weaves across the quilt.
It does.
Sort of like on point, you know?
Yeah.
You just quilt this all in like this. And when you get done, you turn the machine off, and that's it.
Well, Ike, this is really interesting. I noticed that Julie's technique gives a much different look than yours.
Yeah, mine's just freehand and is not as uniform as Julie's. She does a real perfect job on it when she does it.
But there is a time when this is the look you want on a quilt.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, what about something like echo quilting? A lot of quilters are doing that now.
Okay, I can do a little bit of echo quilting in this space I've got right here.
Okay.
And what I do when I do echo quilting, I don't do it just around a regular block. I make a different shape. So when I come in and come back out, my next time around past that
I see.
Has to have this extra look.
So again, you're into the more of the free motion.
Yes.
And for those of our quilters out there who don't realize what echo quilting is, it's really a series of lines going out from a design.
Right.
And the designs are close together.
And you just keep going around and around and around.
Follow the shape.
Until you use up all the quilted air.
All the space,
yeah.
right?
Here's it.
Now, does Julie teach echo quilting in her workshops?
She does.
Good. Sounds like you've covered a lot in there.
Yeah, she takes really good, she's a real good class. Covers everything.
Did you know how to use the machine before you went to her workshop?
Yeah.
You did.
But
so you just had to learn the fine points.
I was learning how to do it her way, yeah.
Oh,
and then when I finished that, like if I want to come over here and do some more echo quilting in the same area, you just start off from there.
I see, and just enlarge it.
Enlarge it right. And if you have a block that's a certain size, a rectangle block or a square block, you just do like this, and then you follow that block, and move in here, and come around this way. So it really makes a lot of movement in this echo quilting. And again, this is my style. It's freehand. And see, I know I can't get back down in there after I go out. So I fill in that spot before I leave it.
Before you come out, right.
Before I leave it, right.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Ike. I have really enjoyed all of the tips you've given us on quilting with the quilting machine all during this program.
Yeah.
And it's been a big hit. And I'm one of your members of your fan club, aren't I?
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ike.
I had a really good time.
Good. Hi, I'm Kay Wood, and welcome back to Kay's Quilting Friends. Joining me today is someone you may remember. This is Marilyn Badger. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Kay.
It's great to have you back.
It's nice to be back.
Now, Marilyn is with the American Professional Quilting Systems, and you teach workshops on the quilting machine, is that right?
Yes, I do.
And you also quilt the quilts for people like me.
Right.
And a lot of other people,
Have
too.
to stay in practice.
That's right. Okay, what are you going to show us on the machine today?
Well, I'm going to show you a new little miniature pattern that you can do and make a miniature quilt.
You mean on the quilting machine you can do a miniature?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us how we'll do that.
Okay, I have the pattern here. It's one of the Harry Wallner designs, and all of it is right there. You just follow it with your laser stylus until you come back to the beginning. And today we're working on a bigger piece of fabric, but if you were doing this, you could just mount a small piece of fabric, allow for your borders and binding and a little bit extra on the sides, and do it that way.
So it doesn't matter how big or how
No,
small.
no,
Real versatile.
Right.
Now, if you're choosing a design, let's say people wanted to just use a design of their own. What do they have to keep in mind? Does it have to be like a continuous
It needs to be
line?
as much as possible. There will be places where it won't be continuous, but if you can keep the main part of the pattern continuous, it helps a lot.
So really, any design that's made for quilting on a regular sewing machine would work because
Yes.
they're continuous line.
It'll work, and it'll work a lot faster.
Okay, well, I know it will. And a lot easier and look
Yes,
better.
a lot less stress on the body.
Right. Okay, let's show us how you're going to start with this pattern.
Okay, I'm going to start in one of these groups of hearts, and I'll start right down here in the center here. When you do this, you'll want to kind of visually go around the pattern first before you turn the machine on because it's going pretty fast and know where you're going.
Okay.
So I've kind of worked this one up, and I know how it works.
So it's a good idea maybe to do a practice one first?
Yes, and they'll turn out good too. So they make nice little gifts, small quilt. So I'm going to hit my one stitch button here and get my bobbin thread up to the top.
One stitch means, I learned this when you were here before, it just takes one stitch at a time.
One stitch at a time.
Great idea.
And then with these, you do want to lock your stitching because it's not hidden in the binding or anything, so you need to have it locked when you're working out in the center like that. Then I wheel my needle down just to start.
So it's in the fabric and sort of pivot
Right.
or anchored in there.
And that's not something you have to do. I just got used to that, and that's what I do.
Well, you know, you're the expert, and if it works for you, I think it's probably a good tip.
So then we're just going to turn it on and follow the pattern. Go around those little hearts. You need to try to stay as close to the pattern as you can on these. Some patterns you can get away without doing that, but this is a very small piece, so you may run into other stitching if you don't stay on the line close enough. Then we come out and go around these again, and over here. To that point. And
I can see that you have to keep your eye on that laser and where it's going on the pattern, don't you?
Right. And then we're already up to this other corner, so.
Well, this is fun. I can look at the needle and you can look at the pattern.
Yeah, you can tell me if I have any problems up there.
Well, it looks like you're doing great.
It's a great little pattern. And then when you get this center motif worked out, you just place your borders around where it's marked and fill the borders in and you're done. So in just a few minutes, we've got half the pattern worked.
Now, how long would it take someone who wants to do quilting on a machine to get to the point where they are comfortable enough to do a design?
If you get down there and practice, just do a few patterns, put a piece of muslin on and fill it up with quilting. And when I got started, I took in about a dozen quilts for the women's shelter that they were going to hand tie anyway. And so I quilted all of those, and by the time I got through, I was ready to start charging.
That is great. Let's take a look at the miniature quilt that you have here. Okay.
Now this is just the finished version. This is the part we work today. We just continue around here and finish these hearts. Then you do have to go back in and fill these 4 little places in and your center. You have to break your stitching on those. And then you fill in with the borders around it and bind it, and it's finished.
All done.
Right.
And you have a really nice miniature quilt.
And in less than a half an hour, you can have that quilted.
Boy, that is great. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here with me today and again showing us some of the versatility we can get with our quilting.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. And I'll be right back. I'd like to welcome back a friend of mine. This is Marilyn Badger. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Kay.
And Marilyn is here with the American Professional Quilting Systems.
Yes, ma'am.
And she has been, you've been here several times before, haven't you?
Right.
And we've always worked, though, on that side of the machine, doing what kinds of things?
Following a pattern with the laser stylus or doing circles and diagonals with the Hartley fence.
Okay, but now we're over here, and what are we doing?
We're doing freehand, just design as you go.
Just play.
Right.
Okay, how do we get started, or what are we using here?
We're using a variegated rayon thread. You can use any thread that you can use on a regular sewing machine. You just have to play with the tension a little bit, do a little practice swatch first, make sure you're not going to break your thread, and take off.
All right, well, it's important to do a practice swatch anytime,
Right.
isn't it? Okay, let's show us how we're going to start.
Okay, I'm going to pick up my bobbin thread with my one stitch button up at the top.
Which means, again, it takes just one stitch, right?
Right.
Am I learning?
That's it. You learn fast. And you know what we didn't? We didn't clip our bobbin thread, so I'll just break it. There we go. And it's up. And again, I like to start with my needle down.
All right.
And you know, a lot of people are doing stippling, and it gets kind of tiresome doing stippling. So you like to come up with some new things, and I'm going to show you a few new things that I do in the place of stippling.
Well, good.
Okay, we're just going to go like, and these are just little crescents. And before I go any further, I want to clip this so I won't get tangled up. And we just do like 3 little crescents like that. And wherever it comes in, you start another one.
Okay, you're using a variegated thread, which really gives a nice effect.
Right, it's light blue to dark blue. And I just keep doing this until I filled in the area that I want instead of stippling. And it's really a neat new little touch. Now you can also, if you don't want to do that one, you can come over here. You could make them pointed. And just repeat them. Come down here. Do some more points. Sometimes you don't have to do 3. You can do 2 if you want to, or just whatever it takes to fill in an area and get back to where you want to do another one. Now, you can also do, say if we wanted to do a few little stars, you can do freehand little stars like this. Throw in a little loop-de-loop here. Go up here and do another one. This would be good on like a 4th of July or some starry nights or whatever quilts.
It's just how you move the needle.
It's yes, and it's very easy to move. It's so lightweight. You don't need a lot of pressure. You don't need to grip it hard to show your knuckles. You just be relaxed.
Okay. Yeah, it does look very easy to move.
Yeah.
Just one finger, maybe?
It is. Yes, you can.
All right, great.
Now I have another one where we just kind of expand on this. You can then work like a little feather around it. This is great for a real contemporary overall quilting pattern for a contemporary quilt. And this, I'm just basically making it up as I go. I might want to throw in a little swirl here, do a little thing right there, do another swirl here. If you get in trouble, then you can throw in one of those little crescent things and fill that area.
And go in a different direction.
Right, and just keep going until you've got everything quilted overall. Or you can use it in borders or in blocks or whatever.
Gee, that looks like a lot of fun.
It is.
Now, freehand motion or freehand quilting like this, does it take longer to learn than the pattern designs?
You know, it depends on what you spend the most time doing when you first get your machine. I encourage my students to learn the patterns good because I feel like when they get comfortable on that side of the machine, they can do anything.
Okay.
If you start out on the freehand side, or say you do circles and diagonals mostly, you're going to have trouble with your borders and things that you want to work really accurate patterns with if you're not practiced at it.
So you need to practice all of it, I
Everything,
guess. And in your workshops, that's what you do.
Yes,
right?
We cover it all.
Gee, this really looks great. Let's take a look at some of the quilts that have some of the free motion quilting.
Okay. You ready? This is a tessellation quilt, and this I have quilted in the variegated thread, different color variegated threads, and I'm using this last stitch that we did with the crescents and the little flowers, and it's kind of patterned after what Carol Breyer Fowler does, only of course she's the master.
Right, that's for sure.
but it does show you that you can do that intricate stuff on
Oh,
this
look
machine.
at that one. That's great.
Now this is a quilt from Crystal Carter's book, A Child's Garden of Quilts, and it's all log cabin with a little bit of applique. And I did a lot of different background stitches on that.
Oh, look.
Basically his face is echoed with some kind of expression for his mouth and eyes. And this is a jewel box that is the background is in the filler stitch that we started out with, the crescents, instead of the stippling.
Those are really pretty. Did you do all of those?
Yes.
You did? Well, congratulations. You do a good job. Now, did you do the jacket or the vest you're wearing?
Yes, I did. I put this on the machine and just went crazy with variegated threads.
Oh.
And then I changed and did some sliver. There's sulky sliver and there's some metallic. And then I couched my yarns on my regular sewing machine when it was all done.
Well, it sounds like whatever you want to do, it'll do.
That's it. It will. Anything a regular sewing machine will do.
Okay.
A lot easier.
Yeah, and a lot faster. Yes.
No wrestling a quilt around.
Well, that's great, and I'm so thankful to you for bringing the American machine to us.
Well, it was my pleasure.
Okay, well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I'll be right back. American Professional Quilting Systems. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Kay.
It's great to have you back.
It's nice.
Joining me now for some machine quilting is Marilyn Badger from the American Professional Quilting Systems. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Kay.
It's great to have you back.
It's nice to be back.
Now, you have shown us before large quilts, small quilts, wall hanging sizes, all with different kinds of techniques on the quilting machine. What are you going to show us today?
Today we're going to do some clothing.
Oh, great.
We're going to do your twin star jacket.
Ah, okay. Well, I'm glad to see that.
And it's a 4th of July, so we're going to, I'll just show you what we are thinking about working freehand in this top part.
Okay.
And then we'll work some diagonal lines in the body using the Hartley fence.
That sounds like a great way to go with clothes, doesn't it?
Yes, it's great. You don't need batting. At least I don't. Now, people who live in the cold climes might want to use a light bat.
I'd probably want batting.
Right. I live on the southern Oregon coast, so we hardly ever need anything that heavy. So I use either flannel or muslin.
Okay, and I notice here on the machine you've already got a piece set up, and it's pinned to a piece of flannel.
Right. I just pin around the peripheral of the piece, and try not to bump into those pins when I'm quilting. So you have to kind of keep an eye on it when you stop and start.
Okay, so when it's finished, this piece of that we're going to quilt will be quilted to the flannel.
Right.
And it'll be ready to construct your garment then.
Yes, generally I cut it out a size larger.
Good
so
idea.
That when it does quilt up a little bit, I can, and sometimes it will get a little stretched out or whatever, and you want to trim the sides down nice and even when you get done.
Okay.
And then you, once you've quilted it, that flannel is your batting, and you line it, and it's all done.
All done. Okay. Well, how are we going to get started here?
Well, you'll notice in my fabric I have kind of a pattern in the fabric, which is some diagonal lines, and so I'm going to try to just hit those diagonal lines and quilt right up that way. So. I have my fence over here, my Hartley fence is here, and it's lined up. I have the bar locked in for that angle, so you never have to change it again. Once you do that one angle and it's set, you just roll it up along the table, and you never have to worry about resetting it, which is really a nice factor when it comes to time. And
so what we're aiming for are completely parallel lines, right?
Right. They will be perfect, just like the circles.
Even if you can't sew a straight line, they're going to be perfect, right?
Right.
Okay, great. How do we get started now, Marilyn?
Okay, we're going to hit our 1-stitch button up here and bring our bobbin thread up. And that just takes 1 stitch, and it will lock it also. When we get our bobbin thread up, we will just take one other stitch. And I'll put my needle down by hand. First, I want to make sure that my wheel is on the fence, riding up against it, so we will have a diagonal. Then, I just stand over here to this side. I work it with just the palm of this hand and guide it right up the fence. And then when I get to the end, I will do a little bit of back stitch because it goes right over the previous stitching and it's hidden.
Okay.
And then if you want to do another one, I'll just loosen up the break here on the fence, move it over to the next diagonal marking on our fabric, and I can just work from that top back toward me. I don't have to come all the way back.
So it doesn't matter which direction you go in?
No.
Great, okay.
So then we're going to come on back this way.
Now, you said you were doing this with just the palm of your hand. How much pressure does it take to move it?
Just very little. Just enough to hold the wheel against the fence so that it won't get off of it.
And the wheel against the fence is what keeps the lines parallel.
Right, and perfectly straight.
Okay. So you're going to do the whole, this is the front and the front or the back of the jacket.
Right, and if I had to break my stitching, say like in quilts, a lot of times you can't quilt the whole piece without breaking your stitching. So in that case, I always break in a seam.
Okay.
So that I can hide my stitches there in the seam, and you'll never see them.
Sounds great. Now, did you quilt on the quilting machine the jacket you've got on?
Yes, I did. I did some diagonal lines, and then I worked some little circles in the middle of it.
So you did a lot of different kinds of quilting on there.
Yes, and it just went really fast. Of course, there's not a whole lot to the pieces in the jacket, so they go real fast when you work on them on the quilting machine.
Okay, and then after you get the individual pieces quilted, then you go ahead with the regular construction.
Right. You'll cut it out around the edge and trim it back to your pattern. You'll take your pattern and lay it on top of it again to make sure it's right, and trim it up and sew it up.
And
line it, and it's done.
And as we mentioned before, you did quilt one of the garments for the style show, for the Fairfield Fashion Show, didn't you?
Well, I quilted the lining for a raincoat that Cindy Wilson made for the fashion show, and we did circles to make it look like raindrops in the water, and it was a lot of fun.
Okay, so on this side of the quilting machine, you have the patterns, you have the parallel lines, and you have the circles, right?
Right.
What else would you do from this side?
Anything that you were going to follow with a stylus, you would do your borders, your motifs, whatever. Anything freehand you would do on the other side.
Okay, so that's the basic difference.
Right.
Just gives you a little bit more flexibility, doesn't it?
Right.
Okay, and you can do any size, as we've talked about before.
Any size. You can do from a small block, miniature quilt, up to a king-size spread. And I actually had a king-size spread mounted on the machine long ways to get a pattern that went up and down the bed. So it really takes a lot.
Okay, so I know I send my quilts out now to be quilted by a quilting machine because I don't know, I just like the looks of them.
Yes.
And it's about the only way I'll get my quilts quilted.
Right, and you can make more tops that way, too.
That's right, and that's what I love.
And the fabric stores love you.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being back with us again.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and I'll be right back.